interface to design rich web applications. GWT is a swing like Java framework. Developer can write web application without writing HTML or a JavaScript code. GWT is a development environment similar to any web server code or a desktop app development environment. GWT helps to debug, refactor, and unit test a web client. GWT provides a so-called hosted mode that allows developers to debug Java code as well as web mode, uh, which executes the GWT generated JavaScript code. Then Google uses GWT for its sites, Google Docs, Google AdSense, and Google Wallet. Other sites are available, GoGrid.com and Synchronize and Google Moderator, World, and see more had. So these are all the front end tool of client using this type of API. More number of search engines, and then Adobe file systems, then app engine, all give the cloud services to the client. So this is the main benefit of this is very user friendly. Then it provide interactive outputs from the based on cloud server responding. So clouds using SQL query or any other app, they can request from the request to the server, and the server only give response from the client. So Eucalyptus cloud, the cloud is highly scalable. The 6 components are grouped into 3 separate levels. That one is cloud level, cluster level, and a node level. The cloud level having cloud controller and scalable object storage. The cloud level of computing architecture is comprised of only two components, and while used by many users, the transactions and each component are typically small. That is cloud controller and scalable object storage, SOS. Next one is cloud cluster level. The cluster controller and the storage controller, VMware broker, that is optional oriented. So here that is availability zone. So here only the facilities available from cloud cluster controller and storage control. Next one is node level. The node level may have many components, but each component only supports a few users. Even though the transaction and are larger, the distributed cloud architecture is flexible enough to support a business of any node controller. So finally, Eucalyptus cloud architecture. Here a UI, user interface, or application programming interface having management console and AWS compatible APIs. Using that we can interact from cloud controller or a scalable object storage. Then cluster having cluster controller and storage controller or a VMware broker is optional. So using that finally node level is available. So that is node controller or all the node controllers having VM virtual machines. Using that they can sharing the resources to client. Last one is Ruby on Rails. So a web application development framework very popular in agile development with the help of convention over configuration management. Ruby on Rails used the model view controller. So model view controller is it is fully front end having the communication between the user. So they can first develop the code. Using that code it will be provide some component. The component is going to be interact with the client only activate that component. So if you give the input to the particular client, particular component by the client. um, then that will be provide some output from this server. Here the architecture is available: Ruby on client web application, browser or client um, request a web server. Web server only going to forward through the dispatches or loads. So controller only action, what are all the action need to provide. So that will be a render or a delegates or a deliver. So using that, then only finally that is the provide the output to the particular browser. Before, the controller needs response from the database, so that only we active record or error record anything, that will be find out and produce the output to the controller. Then controller only give the output from displayer, that is using that displays through HTML XML response or XHTML, CS, JavaScript and images or XML, any type of responses provided through that particular client. So finally, Ruby on Rails, RESTful architecture, that is representational state transfer, is an alternative of web services such as SOAP and WSDL. Works on HTTP protocol for operations: create, read, update, and delete from the database or cloud storage database. Uh, then RESTful is useful when it is required stateless limited bandwidth, especially for mobile devices on overhead of SOAP, when service provider and the user have complete information of operations. So MVC is the main concept to achieve this Ruby on Rails. Separate business logic from HTML views, architecture plan in order to improve the maintainability of the applications. Model, view and controller. Model, the carriers the business logic and the rules to manipulate the data. Model represents the information in the database, manages interaction with the database. Front end is front end of the application, representing the user interface. HTML with embedded Ruby code, used to display the data in form of views, formats such as HTML, PDF, XML, or RSS, and more. Controller, they interact with the models and views. Incoming requests are processed by the controller. Controller process the data from the model, pass it to view for